Hi guys, γεια σας και καλώς ήρθατε to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making Ekmek Kataifi. I had this for the first time on a trip to Crete in the famous Koukouvaya cafe that overlooks the whole city of Chania in Crete. It is delicious and so impressive to serve if you're serving it for dessert. People will think that you picked it up at a fancy dessert shop. It looks beautiful with the different layers of flavor. There's a layer of Kataifi pastry that's soaked in aromatic syrup, a layer of vanilla custard, and then it's decorated with whipped cream. In Greece, they serve it sometimes with ice cream instead of the custard, but I do prefer the custard. It's so good. It's especially great if you're making it as a dessert. You can make this a day ahead of time. Let's get started. So in a small pot over here, I have 4 cups of granulated sugar. I'm going to add 2.5 cups of water, and I'm going to bring it to a boil. You can also drop a cinnamon stick in here if you wanted some nice cinnamon spice flavor. I'm going to mix it up, bring it to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to take it off of the heat, and I'm going to stir in 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. Set it aside so it can cool completely. It's going to get poured on the pastry once the pastry is baked. So I have a pound of Kataifi pastry. This is sold by the Philo pastry in the freezer section of the supermarket or specialty food store. It's going to be in a Mediterranean or Middle Eastern specialty food store. You want to make sure you thaw it out in the refrigerator overnight and then leave it at room temperature for about an hour. If you forget to leave it at room temperature, you can pop it in the microwave for about 30 seconds. That'll do the trick. And then put it in a baking tray that's big enough for making pastitsio or lasagna. This is oval, but a 9 by 13 inch baking tray is best. All of my baking trays that are 9 by 13 inch, the rectangular ones, cracked. So I've ordered a new one. It just still hasn't come in, but this works. It has the same amount of space. And you just want to pull the strings apart. This is shredded phyllo, almost like. It's a wheat. It's very similar in texture once it's baked to vermicelli noodles. So you just want to open it up and let it line the bottom of the pan. And then I have 2 sticks of unsalted butter that I've melted. And I'm just going to pour the butter on top. And I'm just going to toss it around a little bit so that way it can coat most of the Kataifi pastry. And that's it. It's ready for the oven. So my oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to go in and bake on the center rack for about 20-25 minutes. I don't want it to get a lot of color on top because Kataifi tastes really good when it's still nice and soft and moist. If it gets color, it's going to be a little bit crispy. If you like your Kataifi crispy, then bake it a little bit longer, maybe about 25-30 minutes. I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it comes out. So as soon as the Kataifi pastry comes out of the oven, you're going to want to pour all of the syrup on top of it. It's going to look like it's swimming in syrup, but the Kataifi will definitely absorb it all in about an hour. You're going to see that there's going to be hardly any syrup left. It's just the right amount. If you put too little syrup, it's going to be very dry and not the texture that you're looking for. While that's baking in the oven, we're going to make the pastry cream. So we're making a double batch of pastry cream. I have 4 cups of whole milk. This is straight out of the refrigerator. I'm going to put it in here in my saucepan. We're going to need 1.5 cups of sugar. I'm just going to add 1 cup of sugar to the milk and a 1/2 cup of sugar to this mixing bowl over here. I'm also going to add a little pinch of salt. And I'm just going to give this a nice mix. Adding sugar to the milk keeps it from burning. That's a nice little trick from a pastry chef that I learned. So we're going to need 8 egg yolks. I'm going to separate the whites and use them for cookies. I'm going to make little almond meringues with these whites. We definitely don't eat egg white omelets around here, so this is definitely going to go for dessert, get saved for dessert. And we need the yolks for the pudding or the pastry cream, which is basically the same thing. Then we're going to need 8 tablespoons of cornstarch. It's going to be the thickening agent. And a 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. I'm just going to mix this until everything is nice and combined. Okay, so the milk is steaming hot. I'm going to add a little bit of milk to this egg mixture so that way we could raise the temperature. This is known as tempering. And what tempering does is it makes sure that when you add the egg mixture to the hot milk mixture afterwards, it's not gonna scramble. It's gonna stay nice and silky and custardy. So you never skip a step. That should be good enough. And now we're gonna add everything back into the saucepan. And I'm gonna place the saucepan right back on the heat until it comes to a boil. I'm gonna stand here and continue stirring it, because if you move aside and the cornstarch sinks to the bottom and sticks, you're gonna have to start all over. It's gonna be a shame to waste all these ingredients. But once the mixture begins to boil, it's gonna thicken really quickly. Take it off of the heat, and then we're gonna add 3 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract to it, and the pastry cream part is gonna be ready. The Kataifi pastry took 20 minutes in the oven. It's just started to get slightly golden on top. At this point, I took it out and I'm gonna pour all of the syrup on top. So I used to make this and let the syrup fully absorb and then pour the pastry cream on top. But over the weekend, I had guests over and I kind of wanted to make this for them as a last minute dessert, and found out that it works beautifully. Even though it's loaded with syrup right now, the syrup will still absorb. Now I'm gonna pour the pastry cream on top very carefully. And it's gonna look like the whole thing is not gonna work out well because the syrup is still there and it's a lot. But you're gonna see in less than an hour, all of the syrup is gonna disappear, and you're gonna be left with a moist, delicious dessert. So go ahead and spread the pastry cream. And the pastry cream does not have to go all the way to the edges, because there's gonna be syrup there if you're doing it this way. But you should have a piece of plastic wrap ready and put it on top. That's gonna prevent a skin from forming on top of the pastry cream. If you don't mind the skin, you can skip this step too, because the top is gonna get decorated with whipped cream once the whole thing cools down. This is the hardest part of making this dessert, waiting. We have to wait at least an hour for it to cool to room temperature, and then I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator. If you wanna quick chill it and you have room in your freezer, put it in your freezer. If you're making it the same day that you're serving it, it should stay in the freezer for about 2 hours, and the refrigerator should stay probably about 4 hours until it's nice and chilled. But within an hour or even less, all of the syrup will have absorbed. You'll see that there's not gonna be any left peeking out from the sides. Instead, it's gonna go in the Kataifi pastry and make it super moist and delicious. We're gonna wait now, and then once the time comes, we're gonna make the whipped cream and put it all together. As soon as the pastry is nice and chilled, what you're gonna wanna do is prepare the whipped cream. So in a tabletop mixer that's fitted with the whisk attachment, go ahead and add 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. Make sure that they're really nice and cold. Then you can make it as sweet as you like. I put half a cup of confectioner sugar, also known as powdered sugar, and 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. Whip it up until it resembles whipped cream, or it's gonna look kind of like yogurt. If you whip it too much, it's gonna break. So just don't whip it too much. Once it turns into whipped cream, basically it's ready. Then go ahead and transfer it into a piping bag that's fitted with a large star attachment. Now that's just gonna make the decoration really pretty, because I like to pipe out little stars on top all over the pastry cream, and then I just dust it with some cinnamon just for extra flavor, and it looks pretty. You can definitely grind up some pistachios or sliced almonds. You could decorate the top like that. You don't even have to use a piping bag to do the whipped cream thing. It just makes it so decorative and pretty. You can just do a layer of whipped cream on top and just spread it evenly. That's gonna look nice too. But that's it. Once that's done, then it's ready to be served. And now it's time to take a bite. That's the best part. Make yourself a cup of Greek coffee and dig in. You're gonna see that the bottom, the Kataifi, once you take it out, it's nice and juicy. You can cut out little squares with a spatula, or scoop it out with a spoon. It just depends on how fancy your get-together is. That just will dictate how you're gonna serve it. Time to take a bite. Oh my God, so creamy. The Kataifi is so moist and soft. The whipped cream gives a nice, light, airy touch, and the cinnamon gives a little kiss of spice. This recipe is delicious. I think you guys are gonna love it. Tastes even better the next day, so you can make it a day or 2 ahead of time and keep it in the refrigerator. You guys are gonna definitely love this one. The exact measurements are on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I will see you back here with another recipe soon. Yes, us.